And Irene, I'm going to hand it to you to host, and then if you could just hand it back at the end.
Okay.
Um, our last presenter hung up before I could get it back, so bear with me.
Okay, perfect.
You should have it now.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen. And just making sure everyone can see, correct?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Irene Tobias. I'm actually running on West Coast time, so it's still morning for me. So that's why I'm drinking my coffee, if some of you noticed a little before. Um, but yes, my name is Irene. Pronouns are she, her, they, them. And today we're going to be talking about bagels, qualities of a healthy relationship. And so I just wanted to start off today with just a little introductions about myself, where I'm coming from, what I do, and really what's House of Ruth and things I've kind of worked with, right? So I work with House of Ruth, which is a local domestic violence agency in Southern California. We actually sit right in between Los Angeles and San Bernardino County. So we actually are working in two counties with survivors of domestic violence. And we also do have a uh, undisclosed shelter where we are currently accepting, those who are fleeing from an abusive relationship or abusive home and really need a safe place to stay. And so I've been working with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking since about 2014. I got into this work as a young college student, working with my campus advocate, um, working with the Women's Resource Center on campus, which then really gave me a great opportunity to work at a rape crisis center out here in Riverside County as well, out in Southern California, if you're not familiar with it. And that's really where I started to work with youth, right? And so working with youth, I've been doing that since about 2018, a few years now, and that's really where I kind of learned a lot about really what youth are going through right now and kind of maybe how it's not that far off different maybe 10 years ago where I was as a young adult. Um, I just also want to give a disclaimer that if I do ever mention an experience or an example, I will be using some of my own personal experiences of, maybe unhealthy relationships or maybe, an experience where we were dating someone where we're not sure if it was healthy or unhealthy or good or not so good. And so I might be disclosing some things. If you need to take some time or take some space, we might be, discussing some harmful or maybe triggering information today, especially when discussing relationships. If you need to step away for a while, then come back. That's great. I hope you can. If you just need to take the rest of the day, that's fine too. I could always get this information later on that spreadsheet. Okay. So before we kind of jump into it, right? I really want to know and ask everyone this question, about love. When we first hear about love, relationships, kind of just having these loveful relationships with people. Um, where does it come from, right? Where are we um, getting, I guess, seeing love for the first time? If you can, feel free to drop it in the chat, but where were we seeing love coming from, right? And so I'm going to kind of just share my experiences with that. And so most of us growing up, maybe the first sign of love that we might see might be with our parents, right? And so when we start to think about romantic relationships and maybe what are the first romantic relationships we maybe have ever seen, most of it might be our parents. Can include biological, that could include foster, adoptive, that could even include, maybe our grandparents who raised us, right? Whoever maybe was really in our life. I see someone said family, right? Definitely, right? Those people around us. Stepping outside from that, right? After we kind of maybe know about those first few people, right, who have maybe those romantic relationships, more family, right? So maybe those aunts and uncles, right? Maybe our cousins, maybe we have older siblings who go on and get married or get become engaged, right? And so we see all those other things surrounding with love. The next thing we're going to see is media, right? So most of us growing up probably watched a lot of Disney movies, right? I know I did. And so as a young kid, hearing maybe these fairy tale themes, similar to what Hannah had said in the comments, right? Of what that idea of love is supposed to be, of a prince and a princess and a fairy tale ending, right? And so this is our next idea, maybe the next things we see about love. Then after that would be our peers, right? So people around our age, closest to our age, right? Friends, even, right? Our friends start dating. Maybe, we have friends in a grade older than us who start dating, right? We hear people dating or maybe having relationships, right? And then eventually yourself, right? For most people, most of us as a young teen, right, as a young adult, we might explore in that, right? Talking to people, maybe dating people, getting to know people on an extremely different level that maybe we do want to be in a relationship with them, right? And so I see Priya too, friends and found family, right? We also learn these things from those people too, right? I like that choice of words, your found family. And so before we dive in a little bit deeper into a healthy relationship, I do want to acknowledge what is an abusive relationship, right? And what is teen dating violence. And so, 1 in 3 people will be actually affected by dating violence. And this statistic is specific to those under the age of 18. And so it's really alarming to know that people under the age of 18, 1 in 3 people are experiencing some type of harm or maybe some type of abuse, right, in their romantic relationship with their dating partner, whatever that dynamic might be with this person. And if we aren't sure what dating abuse might be, I'm just going to read the definition. Dating abuse is a pattern of coercive, intimidating, or manipulative behaviors used to exert power and control over a partner. So meaning a pattern where that a person who causes the abuse, right, will maybe use different ways to maybe hold power and control over this person, right? So being coerced, maybe being pressured, maybe being forced, asked repeatedly so many times to where maybe that person says, okay, fine. Intimidated, right? So maybe this person feels scared or they're being threatened. Or, one example I like to give is, do you ever remember growing up and, maybe you threw a tantrum in your grocery store and your parents were like, gave you this look, where they were not going to put up with you. They were ready to go home. And so this kind of look too, right? This intimidation look where sometimes they don't need to say words, but maybe just looking at their partner in an intimidating factor. And then also being manipulative, right? And being manipulative can go in through any of these qualities and any of the things they might use in their pattern, right? To kind of keep having power and control over this person. And we'll discuss some more examples and might share a few experiences just so we kind of get a clear understanding. I also do want to let you all know, feel free to ever just drop questions in the chat if you have one or if you think of one. I have the chat open, so I'm pretty comfortable with answering those questions right on the spot. And if you wanted to save them for later, we can always do that too. Let's see. All right, so just so we have an understanding of what an abusive relationship might be. So here is our relationship spectrum, right? So traditionally, a lot of folks have, especially in this work, right, kind of divided that there's healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships that we see, right? And so I really like this spectrum. It kind of helps visualize us maybe how relationships work, right? Because no relationships are perfect. I can tell you, I've been doing this work since 2014, and I have human traits, I have human behaviors, right? And so we really want to acknowledge what the spectrum means. So on this far right side where it's red, that abusive part, right? We're going to focus on kind of the slideshow before that, dating abuse, right? So abusive relationships are going to definitely be those where maybe someone might be experiencing physical harm by their partner, right? Maybe their partner tries to control their whereabouts, right? Controls what they wear, who they see. Maybe their partner, is maybe keeping track of them on their phones by, maybe GPS, or watching them on, Find My Friends, right? Maybe this person is also manipulative, right? And maybe dismissing, that their other partner's feelings, maybe dismissing their own accountability, right? And so this is going to be on one end of the relationship spectrum, an abusive relationship. The other end of the relationship spectrum is going to be a healthy relationship. So this is going to be completely opposite of that abusive relationship, right? This is going to be what we're going to be talking about today. So everything we want in a good relationship, everything we want to have a healthy relationship, a happy, healthy relationship, right? This is going to be on that side. Now, right in the middle is unhealthy, right? And so we can think of this also as a traffic light if it helps us too. Green means go, yellow means kind of wait, slow down, and red means stop, right? So unhealthy is kind of this gray area where maybe some of us are not sure, is this okay or is this not okay, right? And that's what we want to clear up today. So unhealthy is going to maybe, what I would say is where two people, who are in a relationship, maybe they do want the best for each other. They do love and care about each other, but we just don't know how to go about it, right? And the reality is we were never taught about love, right? We don't go to school, in middle or high school and say, I want to take the dating class, or I want to take the relationship 101 class, or we don't have, a section in our health class, or at least in Southern California, I could tell y'all, where we discuss in depth about, healthy and abusive relationships. So people know, how to express their love to others, right? We don't teach any of that to our kids, our teens, and later on our adults, right? So a lot of us learn love from what we were talking about earlier, right? We learn love from our family. We learn love from our friends. We learn love from the people closest to us, our media, our peers, right? And so we learn them from all these other places, and that's how we go forward in moving with our relationships, right? And so I was raised with two parents who ended up getting divorced when I was 3 years old. So at the age of 3, I kind of grew up with a single parent household. I never saw my other parent due to a lot of other factors. But because of that, I think growing up, I was one of those, I guess, students or teens, right, who I wasn't really hyper fixated on relationships or love. Um, I thought it was easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? You could always divorce them. I was more accepting of divorce because I came from divorced parents, right? Whereas maybe my peers had their parents were still together, their parents were still married, or they lived in this household, right? Even if they're still married, doesn't mean they have the healthiest relationship, right? And that might be different experiences for other folks too. Some of us might have, in our family, our parents who are still together, but they fight every day, right? Maybe some of us do have our parents who got divorced. They ended up going into different relationships and they're happily fine on their own in their new relationships, right? And some of us maybe have, our parents who maybe, yes, they're seeing someone and it's okay, but they're not sure, right? So we all have different perspectives, right? Because we come from different walks of life, right? And so because we were never taught any of this, right? When we go into these relationships, we are doing everything we've seen and maybe doing what we hear around us too. I see Ange said we should though have those relationship classes. That would be a really good deal. I think it would be really cool to have those in some public school settings. Right. And so I just wanted to start off with that basis so we all kind of have an understanding where love is coming from. Now, when we might be discussing things, and I will share some maybe unhealthy stuff I have done, I don't want there to be any shame if maybe you feel like you have experienced these things either, by the hands of your partner or you have done them. Because as a young adult, we don't have access to this information, right? As a young teen, right? We don't. No one tells us where to go for this research. No one tells us where to go to learn more about these topics. And I believe it's only about um, 33% of adults actually take this topic, teen dating violence, seriously enough, right? So adults are very dismissive of young youth who might be, experiencing an abusive relationship, right? And that's the type of awareness I'm trying to raise, in my community. And so these are some red flags we're going to go over before we jump into a healthy relationship, just to clear up any maybe gray areas, right? And so the first one is extreme jealousy or possessiveness. And so I do want to get it on the air, right? Jealousy is a normal trait. Jealousy is a human feeling, right? We've all felt jealous before, maybe at one point in our lives. I could think back to, maybe being in school and seeing, kids had, the coolest clothes on, or maybe, they had a better iPod than I did, right? And being jealous about that, even maybe growing up and, I could tell you right now, the other day, some random person sent my boyfriend a DM on Instagram, a compliment, and it was kind of like, who is this random person sending you compliments, right? And I felt a little bit jealous, but the really big difference, right, between maybe this jealousy being a red flag is if I am acting on my jealousy, right? Sometimes some of us, for a lot of reasons, right? Maybe we have been hurt before. Maybe we're not sure if we could trust this person, right? But sometimes we'll act on our jealousy, right? In order to maybe, feel more secure in our relationship. And that will translate into controlling our partner, right? For example, if, that person who sent my partner a DM on Instagram, a compliment, you know, if I said something like, hey, I don't like that, so I want you to delete them or I want you to block them, right? And that might hurt my feelings, and that's valid that it might hurt my feelings. But in no way does that justify me trying to tell my partner who they should and shouldn't follow, right? That is a deeper conversation to get into, and we'll discuss maybe how to have those conversations later. Checking their phone without your permission, right? I am a huge advocate for our phones being a form of privacy, right? Especially right now with being in quarantine, right? The pandemic. A lot of us are living virtually, which means a lot of us are sharing virtually. I know with my friends, we have group chats, some of them will sometimes vent one day, maybe I'll vent some days, right? Where we're sharing maybe personal information with our friends. Maybe we're going through a tough time and they want to be there for us and we want to share, right? There's going to be personal information in there, right? And so I always consider my phone, any type of tech you have, right, a form of privacy. So if someone is trying to go through your phone, especially your partner, or checking your phone without their permission, right, it does feel like an invasion of privacy, right? And it's because your belongings are in here, right? Your pictures, your social media accounts, right? Maybe your emails, your assignments, right? Different things you do in there, right? Um, is in here, right? And just because you don't want to share your phone with your partner doesn't make you a bad person, right? Pressures you to engage in sexual activity, right? So that another word might be coercing you, right? Coercing you, pressuring you, forcing you, right? And not into maybe they put you in a corner, but maybe they ask you so many times that you just kind of feel like, okay, maybe I have to do it, or because you guys are dating for so long, you feel like you have to engage in sexual activity with them. Tries to control our behaviors, right? We're going to go a little bit more over that. Any form of physical harm against you. And with this, I will also include any type of throwing of objects, right? So I've actually been in classroom settings where maybe there's a couple sitting there and they'll disclose to me their recent argument or fight, And, some kids have even told me that they've thrown things at their partner, right? And they've told me before, I'm not hitting them, so how is it abusive? But the point is, right, we're still picking up an object, whatever might be near us. It could be a cup of coffee, it could be a remote, right? It could even be, I don't even know, this little plastic thing for my little stickers for my wall, right? Little tiny piece of thing, right? And it maybe might not have hurt your partner if you threw it at them, but the point is that we still threw something at them with the intention of maybe harming them or because we were so angry, right? And so any form of physical harm would include throwing objects too. And then also threatening suicide if you ever break up with them. I do want to give a disclaimer right now about that bullet point, and I want to say I never take any person, regardless of what age, whatever they say, any type of suicidal threat, any type of, suicidal ideation that they might be disclosing me, I never take it lightly, right? And that's because, let me get some water. That's just because I have worked in this field for a while, and at least in Southern California, we have seen a lot of youth over the few years actually choosing this option for a lot of bullying, harassment they've been experiencing. And so it's something that kind of hurts my heartstrings, especially because I've been through this before, where maybe you're no longer happy in a relationship, maybe it's no longer working out, and you want to leave. You feel like you and this person would be better off not together. And instead, they maybe threaten to hurt themselves, threaten to complete suicide, or anything like that. And I want you to know, if that were to ever happen, if it hasn't happened to you, I'm so happy. But if it were ever to happen, I want you to know that you are not obligated to be there for that person, right? You are not obligated to try to save this person, right? I understand you care and love about them. I've been there before too, where I care and love about someone so much, right? But the relationship is harmful for me, and so I need to leave, right? So letting this person know, that you can't be that person there for them. But one thing you can always do, right, is maybe reaching out to their best friend, right? Reaching out to, maybe if you're close with their family, reaching out to, maybe they have an older sibling, right? Reaching out to them and letting them know, hey, me and so just broke up. They did tell me this, and I'm not sure how they're feeling, but can you check in on them, or can you give them a call? Can you, just show some support for them because I'm worried about them, right? We're allowed to leave a relationship that no longer serves us happiness or serves us a purpose. And it's okay to still care about this person if they are feeling that way, or they do struggle with mental health issues, right? But it's not your obligation to stay in this relationship to help this person, right? We are all our own people. We all have our own goals, and you should be able to live your goals as well, right? And so, jumping on to now, what are these healthy qualities, right? And how we can maintain a healthy relationship. If everyone can, take a minute or two and type in the chat, what are some healthy or positive characteristics you would want in a romantic partner, right? So if you could think of a dream person, if you have this dream person, right? If you're already dating them, write those qualities down, and then I'll read them out loud. Also, if you ever wanted to share something, but maybe you didn't want to have everyone in the chat see it, I want you all know you can always just reply to me, and I'll read your comment. Just, I won't read your name, and I'll read it anonymously. I'm just going to read Hannah's chat right now. I just saw. I think it's an important point to have someone talk to them, since meeting up with an ex could end badly, like breakup violence. Definitely, I do agree with this. Um, Especially with physical contact, right? When it is an in-person thing. And if someone is threatening, self-harm or harming others, exactly. Bringing maybe your best friend, they could bring their best friend, right? Maybe meeting a middle person where we might have a mutual friend, right? And if that weren't an option, to jump off of Hannah's comment, sharing your location with your friends, right? Telling your friends, hey, I'm gonna, meet up with so and so to talk, or I'm going to meet up with so and so because we're going to exchange our belongings, right? And so, maybe sharing that location with your friends to, um, having them keep an eye on you, right? If you tell them you're going to be back at 1 and they call you at 1, perfect. If not, they know, oh my gosh, I was supposed to call Irene at 1. Let me call Irene. I see someone raise their hand. Let's see. I'm not sure how to check. Okay. I'm just going to read these over. So we have listens as a healthy quality, honesty and communication, supportive, understanding, right? And said we have communication that uplifts one another about what we appreciate about one another, what we think we both can work on together. That's a good one. Maybe every Sunday night we could do this and dedicate an hour together, but always have respectful communication of our feelings daily. Yes, I love that. And then Kendra said, respecting the need for each person to have space away from the relationship. Yes, I love these. Thank you all to those who dropped in the chat. If you think of anything or if you're still typing, drop it in the chat. And then just that reminder, if you did have a question or something kind of popped up for you, go ahead and drop that in the chat too, and I could answer that. So these are all great qualities. And most of them do make up, right, what really maintains a healthy relationship. So the first one is communication. And so one thing I always share with the youth I present to is communication is key, right? I remember being in maybe elementary or middle school, and my teachers had like different kinds of stickers, like you're a superstar, excellent work. And I remember some of them being communication is key. And growing up, hearing this from other adults, right, as a young person, and now being adult myself, I hate saying this, but it is a big part in a healthy relationship, communication, right? Communicating with your partner. And so when we have open communication with our partner, right, it first has to it has to take place in an atmosphere that isn't fearful, right? That isn't intimidating, that isn't manipulative, right? We have to be able to have an open, safe space with our partner to be able to communicate thoroughly with them, right? Because if we don't feel maybe safe with them, it's going to be hard to communicate with them, right? We need to talk through all of our problems, right? And so, kind of going to what Ange said, not just talking about maybe these are some of their issues, maybe these are some of the things we're struggling with, but those good things about each other, right? Encouraging each other, listening to each other, right? Really actively listening to each other, complimenting each other, right? And taking it a little step further than that, right? Not just naming, maybe all of our problems and maybe all of the things, I don't like, but also what I like and what I love about you, and why I'm here in this relationship with you. The biggest point I do want to make is the second bullet point, choosing appropriate time to discuss conflicts, right? And so this one is so interesting. And I have youth who always tell me, what does that mean, Irene? What are you telling me I need to pick when I fight with my boyfriend or girlfriend? And yes, that is kind of what it means, right? In a way. And so it's kind of funny how it's worded. But in reality, it's a great way to practice how to communicate at the right place, right? And at the right time. For a lot of young people, right? Especially maybe before the quarantine pandemic, right? Before us, going through school virtually, right? A lot of youth used to go to school early and hang out with their friends, right? I know I was one of them at my age, and going to schools and seeing presentations, a lot of youth show up early to school just to hang out with their friends, and their partners. And so let's say, you and your partner get into an argument at 8 a.m. right before first period. Well, the rest of the day, right, we are going to be thinking about that fight. I know I am a hothead, right? So if I got into a fight with my partner in first period, for the rest of the day, I'm thinking, I should have said this to them. I should have said that to them. Oh, and I should have brought this up. I know exactly what I'm going to say to them next. And so maybe lunchtime comes around. I know what I need to say. Maybe they know what they're saying back to me, right? After lunch, I totally forgot that in fourth or fifth period, right, I have a quiz. And because I was thinking all day about this fight with my partner, I forgot everything about my quiz. And who knows, what will happen with my quiz? Will I do a good job or not? Right. And 9 out of 10 times, right, I didn't do a good job. And so, really choosing an appropriate time to discuss conflicts, right? Um, Sometimes that does mean having to take a step back, right? I just told you guys a few seconds ago, right? I'm a hothead. I have noticed, right? Maybe how I communicate can be a little aggressive. So, one thing I've had to learn is Irene, take a step back, take 10 minutes, and think about what's going on, right? So, if you and your partner got into maybe like this disagreement at 8 a.m., you know, putting a pause on things and saying, hey, I don't like the way this is going right now, but I have a quiz later. I think you do too. Why don't we just talk about this at lunch? Why don't we just call each other later tonight? You know what? We're going to FaceTime later tonight, anyways. Why don't we talk about this? I don't want to have a bad day. Right. And maybe going on with your day in that mindset. Right. So we can maybe still finish the rest of our things we need to do that day, right? Maybe still focus in class, maybe still, go to our after school club or our sport, right? And then come back later on with our partner and kind of communicate, hey, what happened? And this is maybe why I was upset. I see Anne said examples of time to avoid intense conversations in front of your children or at 2 a.m. Definitely, right? Sometimes, we don't need to have these intense conversations in front of other people, right? In front of your children, sometimes in front of our friends, right? Sometimes in a big public setting, right? And it's not because we don't want to, um, you know, be private about our feelings and how we're communicating, right? But it's because we want to have a conversation, right? We want to be able to communicate healthily with our partner, right? Telling them what exactly is going on instead of just shouting over each other, right? Were there any questions on communication? I also did want to give a side note. Everyone communicates differently, right? We're all different humans from all different walks of life, right? I know some of you, I saw someone earlier who said they were from Scotland, right? So a lot of us are here from maybe different places. So we come from different places and we come from different places that we learn how to communicate, right? And so sometimes you and your partner maybe are in a healthy relationship, but you just butt heads because maybe you both don't know how to communicate properly, right? I'll tell you with me and my partner is a very honest person to the point where they are, well, I will say brutally blunt, right? And it doesn't mean that they're trying to hurt me, but it means that they will tell me their honest opinion. Whereas I'm a person who I want you to tell me your honest opinion without also hurting my feelings, right? Because I am a feeler. So sometimes just learning how to communicate, right? And maybe learning your own communication styles can help. The next one is respect, right? Which most of us maybe know, maybe have heard of, and maybe are like, well, of course we need respect in order to have a healthy relationship, right? And saying that makes sense, but acting on that is a lot harder, right? So it does mean we have to respect each other, right? Value each other, right? You want to give in as much as they're giving in, right? You want to be treated as maybe um, how they treat you, right? You also are both on a mutual understanding, right? You respect each other the same amount, the equal amount, right? You value each other that same equal amount, right? It's a mutual feeling. You don't have to force them to respect you. Maybe you're also mindful, right? Meaning, for example, when that person commented, slid into my boyfriend's DMs, right? Being mindful and, saying, hey, I'm actually in a relationship, or thanks, but not interested, or some people will share with their partner, oh my gosh, look what this random person told me, right? So being mindful, even when your partner isn't there, right? And also respecting boundaries. I have a story, I have a personal experience for you all where I was actually in a relationship with someone, right? And we were dating maybe for a few months. And this was college time. And so I remember one time I was hanging out with them and their friends, and the person I was dating at that time had told me in what they considered a joking way that I was acting like such a and called me the B word. And so at that time, I was upset, right? And I told them, hey, I don't like to be called that. And I don't want you to call me that. Right. And they kept kind of going on and telling me, well, it was a joke. I joke around with my friends that way. Right. Don't take it seriously. Why are you taking it so seriously? And so I had to really make it clear to this person that maybe you didn't have the wrong intentions, right? But how I perceived the message wasn't respectful, right? And my boundary is I don't like to call my partner certain names, and I don't want to be called certain names, right? And so this is an example of that person not respecting my boundaries. And I had to tell this person over and over again, right? Just because it's not a big deal to them, right? And because they could joke around with their friends like that, that's fine and that's great. But in this relationship with me, right? I don't want to joke around that way. I don't like to joke around that way. And so why don't we, right, go based off of that? Right, and continuing, okay, what can I do instead of maybe dismissing our partner's feelings, right? That can happen sometimes if maybe we've been in other relationships, right? And maybe in our other relationships, our partners like to do XYZ, and now in our new relationship, right, maybe our partners are not like that. They don't like XYZ, they like ABC, right? And that's something we also have to learn when maybe we're dating people or we're experiencing different relationships, because each person is different, right? And so each relationship is going to be different. The next one is trust, right? Where I think a few of you had also said too. And trust is a really big one, but it's also what I think is the hardest one for anyone, right? And trust is really hard because a lot of it does count on our actions, right? Trust is built over time. If we can all maybe take a second and think about the person you trust the most, right? Just take a second and think about the person you trust the most and think about how long it maybe took you or maybe them to say or disclose something very personal, or maybe something they've never told anyone, right? I have a few close people like that in my life, and it definitely takes time, right? I've never met someone on day one and they tell me all their deep, darkest secrets, right? And so trust takes time. So when we are in our relationship, especially when we're starting one, right? It's going to take time for maybe our partner to learn how to trust us, right? And maybe how we can build trust can also help our relationship maintain this healthy factor, right? So, how we're going to be able to build trust is when we communicate our commitments to our partner, we really have to honor them, right? And it sounds a little silly, but things like if you tell your partner, like, I love you so much, I'll always be honest with you. Or I love you so much, I don't ever want to hurt you. Or telling your partner, I want to spend, after high school life with you, right? When we're communicating about our commitments, right? You know, keeping that conversation on, right? And how are we going to honor those, right? So when we tell our partner we want to be honest with them, that means we have to be honest with them, right? And if later on something new appears where maybe we weren't honest, that is how trust is broken. Now, I know it's hard because on both parties, right? Um, maybe the person who wants to be honest is scared to be honest, right? Because what if we did something bad? And so I'm going to share a quick story with you all and kind of tell you all maybe how this could be hard. So I was in a presentation a few years back where a young man had shared with me during my presentation, and we were talking about healthy relationships, um, about the situation between him and his girlfriend at that time. And so he had told me that in, shorter sense, that he had cheated on his girlfriend. And he was with his girlfriend for about a year. After, he cheated on her with someone else, he realized, he didn't like this person. He wasn't interested in them like that. It was more of a spontaneous, mistake that he said. And he came forward and told his girlfriend. He sat her down. He told her, I want to be honest with you. I did end up doing this, with this other person, but I love and care about you. I don't want to be with this person. I want to be with you. And so, what can we do to fix our relationship? Do you still want to be with me? How do you feel? His girlfriend at that time, right? Was hurt. Learning that maybe there was some type of distrust, in the relationship. So she was hurt, but she still loved him. She still wanted to be with him, right? And so she's told him, okay, like we can still be together. I still want to be with you. But because you betrayed the trust in our relationship, um, there's something you need to do so I can learn how to trust you again. And so he, just wanting to be with his girlfriend and be honest and not, I guess have her break up with him. He said, yes, I'll do anything. What is it? And she told him that, they'll get to stay together as long as she has his passcode. She has all of his, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, information, all the social media information, logins. She was told him, if I tell you to unfollow someone, you unfollow them. If I tell you don't talk to someone, you don't talk to them. If someone tries to talk to you, like another girl, right? I'll deal with it, not you, right? Because um, since you messed up in our relationship and I need to learn how to trust you again, this is how I'm going to learn how to trust you. In her words, right? And so his kind of question to me was, Irene, is that right? Even though I messed up in the relationship, you know, is it bad that she's also maybe doing something unhealthy? And so the answer was yes to him, right? And telling him that, you know, especially at a young age, right? We make mistakes, right? We're maybe exploring, we're discovering ourselves, right? And so if we end up doing something like that in a relationship, right? And you are honest with your partner and you talk to your partner and you both, maybe want to move forward, right? Well, that might have been the only option she thought, you know, okay, I can't trust him now. I have to go through his phone. That's maybe the only option she had, or maybe you could think of, right? And so, no shame to her now, but now knowing that I told him, having that conversation with your girlfriend, I think I brought handouts that day. That was an in person presentation a long time ago. And, telling him, to really sit down with her and trying to discuss this, right? Because all going through your partner's phone shows you is their privacy, right? Like we discussed a few slides ago. All I'm going to see is their pictures. All I'm going to see is maybe their messages with their friends, maybe, what they're posting on social media or what they like, right? And so for some of us, right, maybe we have, like a secret Instagram or a hidden Instagram, right? Some type of hidden social media accounts because that's how we vent, maybe that's how we express ourselves sometimes. Some of us do have deep conversation with our friends through our group chats, right? With just texting them or on FaceTime, right? And so when someone else is going through that, it kind of feels like someone's reading our diary, right? Or someone's reading some of our personal thoughts. And even if we don't have any personal information like that, our phone is still a piece of your property that allows you privacy, right? And if you don't give this person consent to go through your phone, um, then that's when maybe it can become a problem, right? Because you're not giving them permission, they're not just going for it. I saw Anne said, still trying to find even one person I trust due to being exposed to much untrustworthy experiences. Definitely, I agree with you, Ange. I've had so many experiences where I feel like I don't trust people, a lot of people, especially dating partners. And so, one thing that I had to do is give people the benefit of the doubt. And it sucks and I hate this, but sometimes we have to do the healthy work in order to find these people, right? So, giving sometimes this person the benefit of the doubt, if they have told us, that they love and care about us and they're not going to hurt us, you know, and so far they haven't, great, giving them that benefit of the doubt, right? Going forward with it, right? Back to my example, right? Where this random person messaged my partner on Instagram, right? Well, giving my partner the benefit of the doubt, right? Whereas, well, I care about this person. We talk about these things, have open communication, right? And so giving them that benefit of the doubt of, okay, they're just telling me to fill me in, or oh, they're telling me because they just want to let me know out of common courtesy, maybe, right? And giving them that benefit of the doubt of, okay, you're being honest and open with me, right? Nothing is happening. How much is too much when giving them the benefit of the doubt? Definitely, Ange. That's kind of a hard question. I will say though, if how do I say this? If we see verbal commitments similar to this first bullet point, right? So if they are making verbal commitments or verbal telling us things, right, we want to hear, but there is no follow through with action, right? This is maybe when we might be giving them um, too much, right, benefit of the doubt, right? And so I think on earlier on Instagram, little post that said verbal apologies are cool, but change behavior is even better, right? So when maybe we are with someone, right, and they haven't given us a reason to not, right, doubt them, then that's great, right? That helps us feel better in our trust, right? But maybe if they have, right, or maybe it's only those verbal commitments and maybe not changed behavior, maybe no changed actions, maybe that's maybe when we're giving them too much, right? I will also say, disclaimer and disclosure, I am a survivor of both sexual assault and dating violence. Um, Different times, right? And so for me, trusting a dating partner is always incredibly hard. But also, I have to remind myself, since I am a survivor, right, because of everything I've experienced, it's just going to feel hard, right? Sometimes you will meet someone, they seem really cool, and they might just be, everything that we're talking about today, right? And so um, sometimes it really is on both people's parts, sometimes where maybe this mistrust doesn't feel okay, right? And that's just because as humans, as everyone, right, a lot of us have maybe dealt with mistrust before. This next one is honesty, right? And honesty, I think most of us understand it, right? And so I want to take it a little bit further, right, than just being honest, right? But being mindful and being honest. A little earlier, I did disclose that my partner is incredibly blunt. And I think I used the words brutally blunt, which is always what I tell him. And so sometimes when we are with our partners, right, letting them know, hey, just be a little more mindful with me, right? That's something I had to communicate to my partner, right, when we kind of hit this boat, right, where he was being completely open and honest with me, but I felt like my feelings were getting hurt, right? So maybe telling our partners, hey, can you just be mindful, right? Some people are completely fine with completely open, blunt honesty, whereas maybe some of us just want you to be a little more mindful, right? And so I had to tell my partner, hey, be a little more mindful with me. Meaning, if I came up to him and was like, okay, how does my blouse look? I have a presentation later. And he might say, you look really bad. You should change that. That might hurt my feelings. But if I tell him, hey, should I change my blouse? And he says, actually, yeah, change it to the green one. I like the green one way more. at least that's more mindful of my honesty, right? And I don't feel like, oh my God, I look ugly, I look terrible. My partner just told me I look ugly, right? Because they didn't like my blouse, right? And so being mindful sometimes. Still choosing to keep things private, right? So we don't have to share everything with our partner, right? If we have been through things in our past life, right before we meet this person, we are in no way, um, obligated to share things with them. We are allowed to keep certain things private, you know, things like on our phone as well, right? Just because you and maybe your friends have a really close group chat, right, doesn't mean you have to tell your partner everything that they tell you, right? With our phones, right? Doesn't mean just because maybe, for example, we're okay with going through each other's phones, right? Doesn't mean that, hey, they shouldn't ask you still, right? Because I do know couples where both of them are maybe okay and give consent to check each other's phones for whatever reason, right? But it doesn't mean that some things can still be private on your phone, right? This also includes accepting responsibility and taking accountability. Kind of to that story I told for the trust, how the young man, right, he really took accountability for his actions. He came clean to his girlfriend, right? He accepted that responsibility, right? And they tried to build their trust as best as they could. Um, but we really want to look for more healthier options, right? When we are maybe building back things up, right? Equality. So equality is definitely one of the biggest things we want in our relationship, right? Where we make decisions together, where power is shared, right? Responsibilities are shared, where we both have an equal say, right? Maybe, we both want to go to this one restaurant for dinner. Okay, maybe we both want to, start posting each other on our Instagrams or on our Twitters, right? Or TikTok, whatever you all post on, right? Making those decisions together, that equality, right? Okay, are we going to, come out public now and tell everyone we're a couple, right? Um, but a lot with equality is also um, willingness to compromise, right? Just like I've mentioned, that we are all humans, we all have different human needs and come from different walks of life, right? A lot of us might feel like, maybe stubborn in our answers with our partner, right? I know I can be a stubborn person sometimes, right? Where I'm like, I want this, or I know this is the way to do it. And sometimes we have to think about it. And the best way I could say is it's not me versus my partner, right? It's my partner and me versus the problem, right? So, really thinking about that, me and my partner versus the problem. And with this problem, am I willing to compromise so me and my partner are both happy, right? So, if you really, really wanted to see, you know, I'm trying to think, a movie later, but your partner wanted to go to the concert later. Well, let's compromise. What's something we both like to do? Well, we both like to go bowling. Okay, why don't we go bowling later? Right. And so recognizing that it's just